Travel vlogger Tyler Oliveira has undone for India what 36 seasons of The Simpsons did for their reputation. So Indian immigrants, and Indians more broadly, because that's where they come from, have been known since the 90s as happy-go-lucky, hardworking, family-oriented immigrants with funny accents and silly movies. And now, because lots of Indians have gained access to the internet in the last few years, because hundreds of thousands of Indians have moved to Britain, America, and Australia in the last few years, and because of video cameras, we're getting insights into Indian culture that we didn't quite understand before. And so their reputation has gone from a poo from The Simpsons to, fairly or otherwise, sex pests and scam callers who haven't quite mastered indoor plumbing yet. And this hasn't been helped by the fact that Tyler Oliveira went to a remote village in India and participated in a festival after Diwali called Gorehabba, where they throw turds at each other. They pick up cow dung, they throw it at each other. They might even eat the cow dung because they believe it has magical, healing, disease prevention properties and that it brings good luck. And as you can see from Tyler's face, looking like he's just done 10 tours in Vietnam, it was quite the traumatic experience for him, and it's quite the culture shock to watch. But the damage wasn't done to India's reputation by the video. The damage has been done by the reaction by Indians to the very announcement that the video was going to come out. Almost like this was some kind of cultural secret that India wanted to keep suppressed, and Tyler accidentally provoked an antibody reaction for the entire ethnic consciousness of India and its diaspora, most importantly, just by holding up a camera to something that some Indians do in a remote village. So if you're not familiar with Gorehabba, because I certainly wasn't, as a confused and pulled Anglo, it's a Hindu festival in the immediate aftermath of Diwali, celebrated in an Indian state called Tamil Nadu in a village called Gumatapura. And apparently they celebrate it because they believe, some Hindus believe, that a god called Birishwara Swami, bless me, was born from cow dung, and that a goddess called Lakshmi lives in cow dung, which is why some Indians put cow dung in their homes. Again, very foreign practice, and the reason people become quite disparaging about Indians is because they look at this stuff and they realise how culturally distant it is from them, and then realise our borders are basically open to India. So, Tyler Oliveira said he survived the excrement festival. There's a video here that I won't be playing, and he announced this on the 25th of October, and so commenced a saga where, because Tyler went and got tested for potential E. coli, various diseases, if it got in his mouth and eyes, lots of Indians found this quite insulting. They didn't just find the fact that he went and got tested insulting, they found the fact that he even had the temerity to film a rural Indian cultural practice insulting in the first place. Some of the things that he did show in the documentary were even more disgusting. There was an Indian who encouraged people to eat from his cow dung pile behind his house, claiming it reduces the risk of cancer. And when Tyler queried this with other villagers, they dismissed it and said, no, we don't consume cow dung, that's awful. So Tyler just found the one man in all of India who believes that eating cow dung cures cancer, I suppose. So, lots of people were shocked by this, including even an Australian senator, saying, I've just discovered a thing called an Indian poop throwing festival. Wild. Someone put this on President Trump's desk. Stat, considering his comments this week on H-1B visas, it might well change his mind. And because Tyler announced that the video was coming with the photos and the clips, he got a lot of backlash from online Indians. And he said, on the 6th of November, after over a week of being doxed, harassed, spam called, threatened by Indians for daring to even film this in the first place, he said that he wasn't going to release the footage. And then, like a true patriot, psych, put the video out. He says Americans do not negotiate with terrorists. You can dox, threaten, harass, or kill me, and I'll keep going. I am unstoppable. I will never stop fighting for the truth. As he says, the United States of America believes in free speech, will not bow down to doxers, death threats. We believe in filming poop-throwing festivals in 4K. We will not negotiate with cyber terrorists. And so, he did put out the full documentary on X and on YouTube. I will link it down in the description. I will not understand this cultural practice for as long as I live. They were also abusing a donkey, which I think we find abhorrent in the Anglosphere because we treat our animals with moral consideration. Even when we want to eat them, we show it some honor and we don't cause animals to suffer more than is duly required. And for some reason, as part of the ritual, they just drag a donkey through piles of cow poo. Again, our borders are open to this culture. Anyway, so after he put out the video, the trailer, the photos, Indians started mass reporting his account, the images, the posts, and he got a sensitive content warning on all of his photos. And there were Indian accounts on 4chan and on Reddit. I feel like the George Bush meme, where he's leaning in, Mr. President, the Indians have hit Reddit, saying that we are waiting in our cyber group for him to drop the video, and we will make sure it gets disappeared due to the amount of dislikes we're about to unleash. Also posting cope about white women wanting to marry Indians. And it's partially because India has a massive excess male population, because, unfortunately, in Indian culture, for whatever religious or cultural reason, there is a premium placed on male children, and so lots of female babies have been killed. So there are lots of men in India with nothing to do, and so this is why India fosters diasporas overseas. They want to disperse their troublesome male population across the globe to then reroute the wealth of various countries via remittances back to India and use them as living bridges to exert demographic and thereby democratic pressure on our politics. And part of the reaction to Tyler Oliveira just filming one cultural practice in a village in India, part of the reaction should show us we should revisit this assessment and see whether or not it's coming to our benefit. So Tyler pointed out that he's continued to be mass reported, he was getting harassed, his documentary was age restricted on X, the full documentary. X was censoring his posts due to mass reports by Indians, and so X clearly has a political swarming problem. Wade Stott spoke about this in his video essay on the global town square, or the global village, or the global shantytown as it should be called, in the nepotistic, clannish, ethnically self-conscious cultures, when they mix with individualistic, liberal Anglo-Protestant cultures, will exploit the high trust of the Anglo-Protestant cultures with either scam calls, or false information, or swarming tactics by all mass reporting or abusing something like community notes to get anything that they don't like that's being said about their culture, their country, anything that seems to collectively disadvantage their people or their politics, banned, censored, demoted, deplatformed. So this is something that social media companies need to recognize, and I think, as I've said before, we need the ability to region block if we are paying for Twitter. We should not have to interact with any posts from the third world, and we should be able to prohibit third worlders from seeing our posts so that they can't just spam and censor anything we say. So Tyler really went through it because he said he can't post anything on X without getting mass reported by Indians. Anything mentioning the poop throwing festival gets mass reported and then falsely age restricted. And again, all he did was hold up a camera to a niche cultural practice in India. And he wasn't even being insulting. He was doing what a lot of news organizations do when they've gone and covered this before. It just so happens that the editing was entertaining because the practice was disgusting and it's insane to us. But when he was there, he was very polite, he was very charming to the Indian villagers, and he showed genuine enthusiasm to participate before, of course, he was bruised and buffeted by balls of excrement. So Tyler was getting spam calls from India, his number got doxed. They were saying that they were going to sexually abuse his non-existent sister and his mother. They were also sending him photos of white people in bed together naked to imply that they were sleeping with his mother. Again, Indians, you're not beating the sex pest stereotype that you have earned over the last few years with the Bob and Vagine meme if you are sending these kinds of threats. So, the reason I'm making this video is just to say, if you don't want the Anglosphere to have a backlash against some of the weirdest and grossest parts of your culture, maybe don't reinforce the stereotypes by swarming and attacking the people that are going, hey, look, this happens in this strange village. Isn't it gross? Tyler then got dogpiled on by the Indian press, who ran incendiary and false headlines saying, is his mother on OnlyFans? No, but the fact that they even put the question in the headline means it's led some Indians to believe that this is the case, in order to try and insult him. The Indian obsession with OnlyFans telling. He also found that he was getting posted on a subreddit called South Asian Masculinity. Bear in mind, your average Indian man has less grip strength than your average white woman, but they are calling him a white Nazi, and it's saying that this video of just filming Indians doing a festival is sure to inflame already bad online racism against Indians. Is there any way we can cancel him? Do you know how you make the reputation of India worse? Is swarming on ethnic lines people who just film things happening in India, calling him a racist, doxing him, trying to get him cancelled, deplatformed, censored, lose his livelihood, and insult his mother and non-existent sister. That might cause some stereotypes and some antagonisms to be built up about Indians outside India. Bit of advice. So then there were Indians trying to say, well, white people do this, and one of the photos that was posted was Woodstock 99, where a bunch of left-wing hippies go to a music festival, take loads of drugs, and the toilets broke and overflowed, and they were parading around in mud when it turned out it was sewage. But, as Tyler points out, you have to pick this one niche disaster with a bunch of people that the majority population finds disgusting in our country to compare it to an annual festival rooted in a reading of Hindu scripture that happens in India in one notable village, but also in more than just one place. So, again, not a very persuasive argument, not doing wonders for India's global reputation. Then, there were lots of Indians also responding to the fact that Tyler was saying, we hold free speech to be sacred, posting images of Charlie Kirk gloating about his assassination. Again, not going to do wonders for the idea that Indians hate white people and will swarm you on Twitter if you notice there are things about their culture that we find strange and sometimes gross. Also, a bunch of fake Western patriot accounts outed themselves as Indian, many such cases on Twitter, Doge Designer, Inevitable West. Now, Lord Immy Kant, whose profile photo isn't even Immanuel Kant, says he survives on his sister's OnlyFans, that his sister has an Indian boyfriend, that he visits poop festivals to take revenge against his sister's Indian boyfriend. Again, just outing yourself as ethnically tribal as an Indian. As Tyler suggests, it may be time to cut the transatlantic internet cables. The Indian nationalists attacking him have a sick obsession with OnlyFans and white women dating imaginary Indian men, the rates of which are very, very low, by the way. Despite white women being the most desirable ethnicity across all races, they have a very low propensity to date outside of their race. So, bad news to our Indian bros. But the most revealing part of this was when Tyler Oliveira posted that he wouldn't be posting the documentary originally, Dinesh D'Souza, who is a Reagan-era conservative, has made a career championing colourblind liberal meritocracy, who cancelled the likes of Sam Francis from National Review, calling him a white nationalist identitarian in the 90s. Dinesh D'Souza responded, how about commenting on this festival? It seems like the future belongs to the poop throwers. So when Tyler Oliveira goes to India and films a bunch of Indians throwing cow dung at each other after Diwali, Dinesh D'Souza, lifelong crusader against racial identity politics, which, in May, he said is part of a strategy to undermine a free society, takes this personally and comes to the defense of the Indians who are attacking, harassing, and doxing and swarming Tyler Oliveira, rather than Tyler Oliveira, his fellow American. And Dinesh tries to gloat about the fact that Indian immigrants in the Asian box are out earning their white counterparts, as if this is some kind of flex for his ethnic collective. Turns out, if you scratch a conservative minority, you get a rabid ethno-nationalist, just not for the country that they've moved to and inserted themselves into the politics of. And this was observed by a bunch of anons. Dinesh spent decades posturing as a race-blind Christian conservative, invoking Reagan conservatism and age seniority, and then the moment that H-1B immigration receives pushback, or strange Indian customs are just filmed and put on the internet, he becomes an outright ethno-nationalist. Insane, or if you're paying attention, maybe not. Because, as some of the VDare guys who Dinesh was involved in cancelling back in the 90s have said, everyone is a blood and soil nationalist for somewhere, and it turns out Dinesh is for a remote Indian village. And Dinesh kept responding to these posts, criticising him, calling him not an American, by the fact that he feels the need to defend Indians and gloat about the fact that Indians are doing better economically than heritage Americans on average. And he says these people are losers, he doesn't even react to this abuse, and then tried to pivot to the fact that he was just being sarcastic. Why did you feel the need to respond when Tyler Oliveira was getting doxxed and harassed and threatened by Indians? Why did you feel the need to gloat about this? Why did you interpret it as an attack on Indians as an ethnic collective if you are just as American as Tyler Oliveira and you're preaching racial colorblindness? Dinesh. It makes it look like the entire thing was an act and just a gatekeeping mechanism to push yourself up the ladder of conservative politics while kicking down anyone else who noticed that every other group plays identity politics, and so heritage Americans should have a politics on behalf of their identity in their own country. And Tyler noticed this, saying, unprovoked, your response to my family and I being doxed, threatened and harassed by Indian nationalists, infuriated by his documentation of a poop-throwing festival, was not sympathy as a fellow American. You posted a screenshot of median household income of Asian households earning more than white American households. Who does that? It gives the impression that all you care about is the GDP, or that you care about Indians more than you do Americans, despite claiming to be an American. If you believed in colorblind American solidarity, then why is your first instinct to defend anonymous Indians threatening to sexually assault his imaginary sister and mother with a screenshot of household income stats among ethnic groups in America? Why are identity politics convenient for you but not for anyone else? Are you Indian, Indian American, American? Is America simply an economic exploitation zone ripe for plundering? Are you loyal to America first and foremost? Why would you instinctively relate and defend a rural village of Indians throwing cow poop at one another and Indian nationalists doxing my family rather than a fellow American? Patriot, put him in charge of Department of Homeland Security. So Tyler kept noting that Dinesh has made a track record of denigrating heritage Americans, specifically white Americans, when they suggest that they don't need hundreds of thousands of Indians moving over to take American jobs and putting a downward pressure on American housing and changing American culture by building giant monkey god statues in North Carolina via H-1B visas. And Dinesh has said to this chap, you will only get a job if you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, put your baseball cap on properly, put on a real shirt. Ah yes, the response to, we don't want to compete with the entire world for housing and jobs in our own country is, well, bucko, you're dressed wrong. Tyler notes that Dinesh reflexively attacks Americans who suggest that they don't need large volumes of Indian migration, which shows there might be a level of ethnic solidarity here that Dinesh did not disclose when for decades he was posing as a colorblind liberal conservative. And then Dinesh responds to Vivek Ramaswamy, who attacked American culture over Christmas 2024, when Vivek says that we need to fix K-12 education, which is absolutely true because the American public schooling system produces idiots and mass shooters. Dinesh says, how ironic would it be if a brown American like Vivek actually helps to fix education and raise the prospect of white kids, while all the, quote, professional whiteys on X continue their idle boasting about how they too could get us to the moon, just like some white dudes did in 1969. Why do you feel the need to team up with other Indians who apparently preach colorblind meritocracy and anti-identity politics, and when you do so, you champion the fact that they're brown and insult people for being whiteys? This is very revealing. What Tyler Oliveira has done is basically a public service. He has revealed the fact that our borders are open to an ethnically clannish population who will attack you, swarm you, without principles, just for filming a cultural event in a part of their country and saying, well, this doesn't seem healthy or constructive or compatible with Western culture. And he has revealed that their diasporas, even people embedded in so-called meritocratic, liberal, individualist, conservative politics, are very ethnically tribalistic when those people demonstrate their ethnic tribalism and their supposed countrymen, Americans, complain about being swarmed for it. Instead, you get Dinesh D'Souza using anti-white slurs. And so, as this tweet puts, 50 years of grinding by Dinesh flushed down the drain in a single tweet. Very poor choice of words.